What's up, guys? So, it's not necessarily something I've kind of debated on even talking about, and it has to do, obviously, with the new VP pick, Tim Walz, right? So we see a lot coming out from the right side. We see a lot of coming from the media of the right side, which is very few. But we see a lot of people on the right side are pointing out, a lot of people from his old command unit that was with him are pointing out the things he has said about his stolen valor, his time that he served in the military, National Guard, whatever it was, and how he potentially abandoned his troops, the ones that he led and trained and everything, as soon as basically a month or whatever it was after the call for this unit to be shipped off over to Iraq. And for me, so I went back and forth on it because I'm like, I got out of the service. I did my 4 years honorably. And a lot of people attacked me throughout the AMC APE community, the GME community, mainly AMC, saying fake Marine, not a Marine, you name it, just always saying I'm not a Marine. And that's their attack they wanted to do. That's kind of how humans are. And I know that feeling when they want to attack us for our service. And I knew the ones that are attacking me were not ever military or veterans. It's just something they have to do, right? And so it's hard for me because I don't want to attack the man's service, all right? He served. Anyone that put on a uniform for us in America served. And they are special to me. They are important to me, okay? Because they did something that only barely 2% of all Americans have ever stepped up and done, which was stand for your country. But the other side, and let me finish on this side, sorry, before I go there. To understand why he left, we can't know for sure what was going on in his head. I got out September, I keep saying September 29th, 2001. I think it was technically September 28th, but I remember it was a Friday. Now, if you guys remember what happened, September 11th, obviously everyone knows 11/11, September 11th, 2001 is when the towers were hit. I remember being there in the base, coming in, we watched the second plane hit, all of us Marines were gathered around a computer screen. But I had already, my EAS is your listed end of service when I could get out, was scheduled for November. But I had saved up vacation time and I was allowed to get out early. So 3 to 4 months prior, and when you're going to be getting out of the service, I started doing my checkouts, all the things I needed to do in advance. I even had the battalion commander sign off on my early release so that I could use what vacation time I had to get out, go take care of my wife and my 6-month-old son at the time, get a job, and be able to do what's called double dip, collect my 2.5 months or 2 months worth of military salary, which is vacation time, allow myself to be paid and get a second job so I could try to build my new life at 21 years old. Well, that was all planned in place, ready to go. Then we get hit in the towers. My wife, I'd already shipped her back home to mom and dad. I was living on another couple Marines' couch, got rid of my place. All my stuff was gone. I'm due to get out September 28th, 29th. September 11th happens. Talk about a scary moment. I had a wife, a baby. We're going to go to war. I'm going to admit, I wanted to be there for my wife and my baby. So I'm like, if I can get out, I want to get out. It's my time. I've done my time. This has happened. But the other part of me, the warrior, the Marine killer, what they trained us to be, wanted to be a part of that, wanted to fight, right? It's in me. I was trained to fight. I was trained to go over, but I was torn because I was due to get out. And there was supposedly going to be a stop-loss order. That was the rumor going around as of October 1st. Anyone due to get out can't get out. This is a story that I've talked about for years with folks. And I was, okay, so I'm going to be forced to stay. I'm a gray area. I'm technically EASing out in November. I'm leaving now September, the end of September, right there. That was Friday. That Monday was supposedly the stop-loss. I can't remember if the stop-loss actually happened because I left. I got out of there. But I didn't know if I was going to. I had to go with like 3 or 4 days left. I had to go into my captain's office. I was a little frustrated, slammed my cover down on the desk and gave him my spew. Look, sir, I've been a very good sergeant, excellent in everything I've done. I received a Navy Achievement Medal. I've never been in trouble, never, did anything wrong. I could run like the wind, shoot like the wind. I've done everything that a Marine is supposed to do. I need an answer. I have a wife and a 6-month-old baby waiting for me. I need to know either I'm allowed to get out and leave like is planned, or I'll stay. Either way, because I'll do either. That's the truth. And he said, "You're right, Sergeant Minor, you can get out." And of course, I started to cry and go home to my family and go home to my wife. But it has haunted me my entire life, because I ended up later on, a lot of people from that I knew ended up eventually getting sent over. I did not. And that's where I get attacked. Well, you didn't serve in war. And I know that feeling too, right? I still to this day, well, you're not a combat veteran. And I'm like, does that really matter? Is there really a difference between a combat veteran and a veteran? So I kind of want to understand, in my situation, I could have voluntarily stayed, right? It's not like I left early because this happened. I didn't quit early on purpose because I knew we were going to war. But I was still put in that weird position, right? But to this day, it still haunts me, because I knew a Marine of mine that I knew personally that went over, was afraid to go, begged and pleaded with me. I can tell you the story like it was yesterday. What can I do, Sergeant Minor? What can I do? And I said, there ain't a damn thing you can do. The military, the Marines did not issue you a wife. They're not going to care that your wife is pregnant for the first time and you've had miscarriages, and this one actually is a viable baby. They don't care. If they gave you orders, son, you're going to Iraq. And unfortunately, I said, you can try to quit, you can try to break your leg, you can try to throw your life away that way and stop it, but you signed a contract, USMC, you signed a contract. You're a fighter, you're a warrior, you're going to have to go. And he did. 2 weeks after getting there, while doing night watch at night, one of those rocket, the kind of like a bazooka, the rockets, boom, hit him in the head, killed him and the other Marine. That was it. And it's like, I still, to this day, I should have been there. I should have been there. I was a Marine. I should have been there with my Marines, okay, a Marine sergeant. And it haunts me that I never went. It haunts me that that's not who I was. A lot of people say, Mike, that wasn't the future. That's not what God wanted. That's not where you were supposed to be. And it's not, okay? But it still bothers me. I deal with there's a term for it. They went, I didn't. And it's the weirdest thing. A lot of people are like, well, it's a good thing you didn't go. Well, you don't understand how a Marine or even a veteran of any service potential would feel. But what does bother me is evidence comes forward is that this man, I get it, he did all those years. It's National Guard, guys. So if you know anything about the service, a Marine knows that if you want to retire with a gravy position, go in the National Guard, okay? It's not any easier. Not any easier. What am I trying to say? It's probably the easiest thing you can do if you want to call yourself a service member, okay? I mean, it's just, let's be honest, right? And if you ask any Marine or any of us, we're going to say you should have went in the Air Force, son, right? That's just kind of like how the vets work. But the National Guard is especially if you're doing the weekend warrior programs or whatever it may be, it is literally compared to being a Marine or even Army or even Navy to a degree. It is considered the easiest position to put yourself in. I haven't investigated fully into everything he's done. However, if this man went through all this and then he had re-enlisted or signed up, whatever the term was, enlisted, not an officer, and a lot of the media is trying to make it sound like it's an officer. But if this guy used his military service, I've got the video clip, and I'll add it here again, where he said the weapons of war that he carried in war, which he never went to war, okay? That's where the stolen valor part comes in. You can't pretend or act like people assume based on my age that I am an Iraqi or an Afghanistan veteran. They automatically assume it, especially when I tell them I have PTSD. None of it came from me going over there, and I have to tell them that because I will not sit there and allow people to think that I'm actually a war veteran that saw combat, okay? Because I have buddies that saw war and saw combat, and they are affected way differently than I am. And if he has done that, and that's what they're saying, that bothers me. That means you're utilizing the services you're in, and you're making a blatant lie to basically dupe, manipulate the people out there. And in the way it's coming out, and all the information is coming out, as soon as the orders came down that they would be shipped to Iraq, supposedly he just quit, up and left, retired, whatever the case may be. That's wrong. That's yellow belly shit. I'm sorry. In my eyes, that's yellow belly shit. If that officer captain would have told me to stay, you know where I'd have been? I'd have stayed. But I was at the end of my service. My contract ended. And that's what bothers me most about the manipulation of what's happening with this VP pick. And that's just the military side of it. And they want to attack J.D. Vance. He's a Marine. He served. He went over after I got out. He got out after I did. He's 5 years younger than me. But I would choose a Marine and J.D. Vance all day long before I would choose a freaking socialist, baby killing, even up to birth, allow people to tear your city and burn your damn city down and lie about your service and act like you've been at war and try to sit here and take away our earned freedom of our 2A rights to tell me that I can't own my semi-automatic AR rifle because it's a weapon of war. It's not. It doesn't end there with that rifle, because there's plenty of semi-automatic rifles that can do the same amount of damage that an AR-15 can. So once that goes into effect, you might as well forget. Every inch you give, they take a mile. Give a mouse a cookie, they take a freaking whole bag of those cookies and they'll steal the other cookies off your shelf. That's how it works, especially in regulation and government. And that's why guys like me and those 2A lovers and people that love their country and serve their country would stand up against that kind of crap. So yes, I will post everything I can, because I'm hoping like hell that Americans, my fellow Americans out there, would not and will not be fooled by the manipulation of the media and the left wing and the Democrats, especially when it comes to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And that's why I will not stand back, and I will post what I want, whether you like it or not. And if you don't like it, cool. Drop your comments. It does not bother me. But if that's really what this man's about, is that somebody you're going to trust to stand up for you and your country and to stand up against the other countries out there? If the man couldn't even go do what he was called to do, he signed up, he signed the contract, and he bailed, and then he tried to use it to further his career. Think about that.
What the hell kind of leader does that? He abandoned us, you know. I mean, what the hell kind of leader does that? I mean, he just, as soon as the shots were fired in Iraq, he turned and ran the other way and hung his hat up and quit.
We'll get to Barron's new message for voters in a moment. But this all starts years earlier, when Barron says Walz's misleading statements about his military service first led him to come forward in the fall of 2018. So you try to get this message out, but Minnesota's largest newspaper checks it out, says it's 100% true, but yet refuses to print.
When I hung the phone up, I said, what the hell is this, North Korea?
Back in 2005, a warning order went out to the 1st Battalion, 125th Field Artillery to mobilize for a mission to Iraq. At the time, Walz served as the unit's highest non-commissioned officer, but months later, Walz would retire from the Guard, avoid the deployment, and run for Congress. Tom Behrens was next in line for the position and was asked to take his place.
I was like, well, for Pete's sake, this guy quit. And if I say I'm not going to do it, I mean, what the hell kind of leadership is that? If a company would say that we're going to deploy to Iraq or somewhere and you're going to be gone for whatever amount of time, and then the foreman just says, no, I'm not going. I mean, what does that say to the 500 people that work in that factory?
Behrens would go on to serve in Iraq on a nearly 2-year deployment as a command sergeant major. All while Walz began using that title as a congressman. Behrens says he first contacted Walz with his concerns, sending these letters to Washington. They all went unanswered. But then we fast forward to the election in 2018 in Minnesota, and you try at that time to get people's attention with this story and also with what seems to be a very misleading statement that he continued to make about his service.
It kind of just sat there, you know. When he was a congressman, he bragged that he was a command sergeant, retired command sergeant major. I'm the highest ranking person ever in the House, and you know, all this lie that he was telling. The state of Minnesota came out after 2018, after this was exposed, and they said, well, he can say that he served as a command sergeant major, but he can't say he's a retired one because he's not.
And that's what he was saying.
And he was saying that, and there was lots of public, you know, lots of cards coming in the mail, you know, for him to be elected. They said right on there he's a retired command sergeant major, just tooting his own horn, just hanging on the coattails of people that actually are command sergeant majors that went through all the process and put all the time in.
And we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at. Those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
Hello everyone, I'm Congressman Tim Walz. It's a real honor to be able to pay tribute to the 34th Red Bull Infantry Division and to your families and friends as you prepare to deploy in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. As a 24-year veteran of the National Guard and the Red Bull Division and a retired Command Sergeant Major, I'm especially proud of you. You are continuing a long and great tradition of service by the citizen soldiers of the 34th, a tradition symbolized by the fact that the 34th served the most consecutive days in combat both in World War II and in Operation Iraqi Freedom. You are also doing something truly exceptional, as you prepare for this mission of unprecedented scope in Iraq.